Good evening, everyone. Tonight on America First pregame, we're going to be discussing how the Democrats have all the youthful energy going on right for them right now. We're going to be talking about how the Republicans don't like the Groypers, and we're also going to talk about how the Democrat Party has subverted its members into hating the wrong people for the wrong reasons. Let's get straight into it. This is from the Nick Fuentes America First Show, episode 1705, and this is going to be at the 4-minute, 24-minute marker. Let's just jump straight in.
Zohran Mamdani outperformed the polling by a significant margin. So why is it that the polls were right about Cuomo, wrong about Mamdani? It's because they didn't realize what the ground game was doing in the city, which is they were converting Trump voters to being Mamdani voters. They were going out to young people that ordinarily wouldn't have voted and got them to the polls. They got people that historically stay home, they got them to register, and they got them out to vote. And so it's very similar to like in 2016, like that shy Trump effect, where Trump was able to get some of the Obama voters and Trump was able to get people that hadn't voted in a few cycles or maybe ever. He was able to turn out these people, in that case because of the strength of the message. In this case, the DSA and these progressives in this particular city, in this particular situation, why are they outperforming expectations? Why are they having these big upset victories? Why are they outperforming what they're expected to do? It's because they're hitting the pavement. They're pounding the pavement. They got 30,000 volunteers. They're knocking on millions of doors, making millions of calls, doing thousands of events. They have tens of thousands of small dollar donors, and they're getting people out to the polls that don't usually vote.
Yeah, that's really good points. And what does it take to do that? That takes a lot of youthful energy, right? Literally going out to thousands of people, getting thousands of people to come out and to vote, but they're all energized. That's the youthful energy that you see going on right now in the Democrat Party. In 2016, a lot of it was sort of the white liberal, even white liberal females, but it was the white liberal older people that had all the energy. Well, here we are 10 years later. It is a youth movement going on in the Democrat Party right now. And as history tells us, the people who have the youthful energy tend to get what they want and get their way. All right, let's move on to this next clip. This is Nick Fuentes in the 4-hour mark and 4 hours, 32 minutes in. He's talking about quite the reverse problem in the Republican Party, which is the Republicans hate the Groypers. And the Groypers are the guys who are the youthful energy right now. As far as the Republican Party is concerned, they only have the MAGA movement, which is basically older boomer evangelicals right now. They don't have any sort of youthful energy, and the youthful energy is actually the Groypers, and it's those conservatives on the right that are kind of going against the grain. Let's check this out.
They didn't believe in it. And so sure, he had the endorsements, and he had the labor unions, and he had the big money behind him, and he had some of the national media and the New York Times and all of that institutional power on his side, but he didn't have the people power. And you see, this is why the Republicans fear the Groypers fundamentally. Why do they fear the Groypers? Why do they fear me? It's not because we're going to get 180 million people to believe in Groyperism and vote for the Groyper president. That's not why. It's not even because they think there's 100 million of us or 50 million of us. It's because there might be 50 to 100,000 of us across the country. 50 to 100,000 of us that could maybe go to a state or a city or wherever where it counts, and in a close race, maybe they can make a difference. And I don't think the time is yet right for the Groypers to come out in full force. We have to choose the battle very carefully. You see, this is the thing. In 2026, you saw that race in Ohio. It's a huge state. Too many people. Casey Bush, not a great candidate. Even the people power in Ohio might not have been enough to overturn it. What's more, there are some other difficulties with the far right that the far left does not have. It's not socially unacceptable to be far left right now. If you go out and claim to be a member of DSA and watch Hassan Piker and the rest of it, you don't get fired from your job. If you put on a t-shirt that says, I'm DSA, a journalist isn't going to show up and dox you and get you kicked out of your job and interrogate you. Do you believe in everything Nick Fuentes says?
That's so true. I mean, you think about it, the left has these protesters that are going out and they could say pretty much anything. They could talk about how they don't like a certain race of people with lighter skin pigmentation. They blatantly come out and say those things. They could say things like, "Oh, out in the open," and they won't have to worry about losing their job. And one of the reasons is because they're made up of young, educated minority people. They go to universities. They're not stupid. They're very smart. They understand the temperature in the country right now, where as the Groypers, as typically young white men, not all white though, okay, there's Asians, there's blacks. If you're a conservative, you can lose your job. That is well worth thinking about. And once again, remember, I'm only commentating here. I'm not giving any of my opinion. I'm only pointing out things that Fuentes is talking about on the America First. But if you think about it, that the momentum all belongs to the left, which is why in 2026, this is going to be a complete blowout. Think about all the movement against the ICE raids, all the movement against the the prevention of mass deportation, so on and so forth. That whole thing. They can go out, they can do those things. They can literally, I know that they had tragically 2 people shot and killed, but you can go and interfere with an officer. I believe ICE agents are federal officers. You can interfere with their job and not even really have to worry about the consequences of even losing your own job or even going to jail. They weren't even really arresting anybody. In fact, after the 2 people got killed, it was like 1 female and 1 male, and it's like after that, the Trump campaign, what he did was basically said, all right, let's back up. They backed off of immigration mass deportations. And think about it. Have you heard anything in the last 6, 7, 8 months? Certainly nothing since the Iran war, right? So the momentum right now completely, it belongs to the Democrats, to the left, because the youthful energy on the right they're not even socially acceptable. You can't come out and defend, if you're a white man, you can't even come out and defend your own race without losing your job. Or, you basically get shunned on the internet, so on and so forth. You get shadow banned. Those are the points that Nick is talking about, and that's a really huge thing to think about. Think about how the direction of the country is going to be going in, what that means, what sort of things are to come. Trump really hasn't done us any favors, and we're going to be talking. I'm going to be doing a live show. I believe it's going to air Sunday night. You'll see this video on Monday night. So this show is going to be today on what is today's date? It is the 28th. So on the 28th, I'll be doing a show about when Nick was on Myron Gaines' show, The Fresh and Fit, about how basically Trump has not done any favors for the Republican Party whatsoever, because right now he's not doing anything against protecting its young people, its young energy. And the Democrat Party right now has all the momentum. All right, let's move into this next clip. This is going to be the longer one of the 2. This is basically how immigration is a problem for everyone. And Nick's going to kind of go in and explain that, but he's also going to get into some things that could be relatively offensive. This is a trigger warning, but he's going to be talking about how the left, in my words, the left has been subverted into hating the wrong people for the wrong reasons. There's a lot of hatred towards white people right now, and there's a lot of hatred, and there's a lot of the left wants to bring in more immigrants because they basically feel like the United States should belong to everybody. The problem is mass immigration is a problem for all of us, and that'll be another thing we talk about in the future. Let's go ahead and pick up. This is on the 4-hour, 46-minute marker. Actually, the 4-hour, 45 and 35. Sorry, 4-hour, 45-minute marker. Let's listen.
And you know who else was pushing this narrative all over social media? The American Communist Party. The American Communist Party, headed up by Hazal Dink and that other nitwit Jackson Hinkle. Those were the people that were the shock troops pushing it on Twitter, and that's because maybe some people have suggested that Tyler Robinson was in their Discord server. So whose head would have been rolling on the floor? Whose head would have been rolling down the steps had the government and society been unified against the radical left? It probably would have been those people that were pushing this narrative that it was anybody other than the radical left that did the killing. That's how it started. But then it kept rolling on and on.
So he's going to be going, he's basically talking about how the left is now, it's basically pushing their agenda by hiding behind Israel. If you think about who killed Charlie Kirk, I know that's very contentious. A lot of super right-wing people say it was Israel. Same thing with the left. They're pushing the Israel narrative because they don't want the pressure on Tyler, who's a young liberal man. As far as I can remember. It's been a while since I've looked into it, but let's go ahead and continue to play this clip, but just think about this here for a second. It's really important to understand where the direction of all this is coming and where the left is coming from and where the right is right now. The right is in really bad shape because the youth can't do anything. The youth are being silenced. And what's going to end up, I think, going to end up happening is they're going to take the 2026. They might even take 2028 in the presidency, and all of a sudden, it's going to become, the roles are going to completely reverse. Is what I think is going to happen. I think Trump's going to end up the Republicans are going to end up losing 2028, and if that's the case, I'm not 100% sure, but if that's the case, a Democrat's going to come in. They're going to be a socialist, and all of a sudden, they're going to be the ones in power, and those young men on the right are going to be going through more difficulty. All right, and it's going to be a completely different dynamic. Right now, the right is pushing up against the Groypers, whereas if the left comes into power, right, in 2028, they may go against anybody on the right, no matter who they think it is. If you're not of the left, they're going to come after you. Let's continue this this clip.
Maduro was extradited from Venezuela. Who was out there saying that was an Israeli op? The far left. When ICE killed those two protesters and Hassan Piker and the radical left in Minneapolis were firebombing ICE facilities and attacking ICE and attacking Border Patrol, what did they say then? They said, well, ICE is trained by Israel. It's an Israel issue. And this is the pattern. The left is pushing their agenda everywhere, always, their ideological agenda. They're pushing their agenda covering up the murder of Charlie Kirk. They're pushing their agenda covering for Cuba and Venezuela. They're pushing their agenda covering for these Somalian migrants in Minneapolis. And in every single case, they hide behind Israel. And they say, oh, the left didn't kill Charlie Kirk. That was Israel. Oh, you think the left did it? What are you, with Israel? We didn't remove Nicolas Maduro because he's aligned with China and Russia. No. We removed Maduro because of Israel. What are you, with Israel? You support American empire? You're with Israel?
I remember that.
With ICE. Oh, you don't support Somalians stealing all the tax money and sending it to their country? What are you, with Israel? ICE trained with the IDF, you know. What are you, with this pro-Israel administration? This is what the left is doing.
Let's pause for one moment. Nick is really good. He even has this saying where he's like, I'm always right, just not right now. It takes a certain level of intellect to be someone who understands what Nick Fuentes is saying. He's always painting a grand strategy. Now, he'll do things. He has this main narrative, which is what I'm trying to highlight on this show. It's a main narrative of serious talk, of like scrutinize what's going on in the world to help us understand what might end up happening, what direction things are going in. He throws in a lot of, funny stuff and viral clips in between, in the middle, because that's what he's really good at. That's how he gets his brand name out there. So most people think this guy's like a super ridiculous, they think he's super racist. They think so on and so forth. Most people, with the exception of the Groypers, think that this guy is just some clown. Think that he's just a race baiter. Think that he's just, a provocateur. but he's not. He's actually super serious. We're going to continue this clip, but I want you, that's going to be one of the main things that I do in this show, is to sort of give you that narrative that's underneath all the hype and all the fame and all the viral clips. I want to illuminate that narrative so that you guys can understand.
They are taking their ideology, they're bundling it with Israel criticism, and this is like a Mott and Bailey. What they're pushing is they are pushing a pro-China, pro-Russia agenda. They're supporting Maduro in Cuba. They're supporting open borders, abolish ICE, Medicare for all, pushing trade unions, all this garbage, pushing abortion, feminism, pushing anti-white tax policies. And then if anyone has anything to say about it, they retreat and they say, oh, well, you're just with AIPAC. You're just with Israel. And they're all doing that. Ryan Grimm, Max Blumenthal, Jackson Hinkle, Hassan Piker. This is what they all do. I don't want queer liberation. I don't want open borders. I don't want to abolish ICE. I don't want to defund the police. I don't want Medicare for all and taxing millionaires and billionaires. I don't want a policy where we're pro-Venezuela, Cuba, and China. It doesn't even make any sense. I'm right-wing. And by the way, I'm America first. How is it America first to let illegal immigrants take over our country? How is it America first to not deport them? How is it America first to redistribute the wealth from taxpayers, business owners, middle-class people, and give it to illegal immigrants and their children?
And this is another thing, and he may touch on this video, I can't quite remember, but he's going to go into talking about how, like, if you replace the main taxpayers, which right now is white Americans, the ones that feed the most amount of money, and I think the second is the Latino Americans, and I think the third are blacks, and the fourth are Asians. If you keep replacing, if you keep pushing mass immigration, it's not good for anybody, because the largest group, the wealthiest group that feeds into taxation, that goes into the welfare, that goes into the projects, you'll hear those are primarily funded by one particular race class or one particular class in the United States. It is first and foremost whites, and then secondly Latino, and then third blacks. Okay, so if you keep flooding people in, and those tax dollars have to go to illegal immigrants, it's going to start affecting not who first. It's not going to be the rich people first. The rich people actually benefit from those workers coming in, because they're the ones that provide, that can give the wealthy people cheap labor, so on and so forth, right? So it's going to be actually the black class and the Latino class that is going to be doing the most amount of suffering first. Think about this. Why does ICE, I think 30% of all ICE agents are Latino men, or Latino men and women, mostly men. And why is that? Well, it's real simple. They know what's on the other side of that border. They do. Either their parents came directly, or their grandparents came, and they came for a reason, and they want to protect what's here and now. We're going to continue this clip because I think it's going to run for another 6 minutes, and he's going to say some things that I think are important to touch on.
To educate them, to take care of them when they use the emergency room as their health care, to pay for their subsidized housing, to pay for their food stamps. People talk about affordability. Here's an idea. Why don't we deport 10 million people? Don't you think that we're running a giant deficit? Don't you think we're running out of money? Don't you think everything is unaffordable because we have a giant population of people?
Of course. Hold on one second. Refresh. Let's see if that works. Rumble sucks, man. It really does. Wow. You can't even play a playback video. What's up? Here we go.
No language and no education. So what do we need to do with all these people? We have to subsidize their housing and their health care and their education and their food and their children and their extended family and all the rest of it. And this is what is being called socialism. This is race communism. This is literal race communism. And understand the relationship between these things. Migrants are being brought in. They're replacing the white people.
They are replacing the white people because white people are not giving birth. They're right now they're underneath the birth rate, even though it's gone up a little bit. They're replacing them as far as jobs, as far as having children. The white population is decreasing, and they project that within the next 20, 30 years, maybe even less, maybe 10 to 20, that the whites are going to become a minority in the United States. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And Nick is just talking about these things. Once again, remember, I'm just commentating on this. None of this is really my opinion. I'm just trying to simply diagnose and see what direction we're all going in here. All right, let's get back to the video.
Everything about their lives is subsidized. All their opportunities are subsidized.
What point I also wanted to make, yes, they are subsidized, Nick, you're right. The other point I wanted to make is that when they do come in, the illegal immigrants, and even legal immigrants, where they tend to go to lower socioeconomic centers, cities, neighborhoods, so on and so forth. They don't go straight to the white neighborhoods. They go in and they occupy black neighborhoods, other Latino neighborhoods, and right now there's this like assumption that, and you'll see this kind of going on, at least it had been in previous weeks, that this idea that all the non-white people in this country are going to get along. I mean, seriously, that's just like, do all the Latinos in South America get along? Do all the Africans in Africa get along? Do all the Indians in India get along? India has a caste system. Right now in Africa, Muslims and Christians are killing each other, right? In South America, you have gangs that literally, Latino on Latino crimes going on. Just like here in the United States, you have a lot of black on black crime. So mass immigration, and we're going to touch on this. I'm going to let this finish out for the next few more minutes. Mass immigration is everyone's problem, but more importantly, immediately, it's going to be the lower socioeconomic classes, typically the not white people, even though there are whites of lower socioeconomic. But I doubt immigrants are going to want to go to West Virginia. No offense to West Virginia. I think it is the poorest white state in the entire country, if not one of the poorest states in general. Nobody's moving to the Appalachian Mountains. They're going to go to the cities. They're going to go to the Carolinas. They're going to go to Atlanta. They're going to go to all the warmer climate cities. They're not going to move directly up to northern cities where the winters are cold unless they're deliberately brought there, like the people in Minnesota. I forget who that was. That it was just another. It's been weeks since that happened, but those people were refugees deliberately brought there, where there were people who had already done all the logistics in that area to meet them where they were and provide them with Social Security cards, provide them with Social Security, help them get their license, help them get jobs. That's completely different. Okay, what we saw with the Somalians, in Minnesota, what we see with them was completely different. That was logistical organization. Mass immigration is more of a free fall. They're going to occupy most of like the southeastern states and cities, because that's also where the largest black community is, right? They may go to California. California's very expensive to live, or they might go primarily in the heart of a black America, which is what? North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, those areas, Louisiana, all that. They're going to go there because you have majority black cities in those areas. So this is something that I wish that people need to understand, that it's going to affect everybody at some point. The people who are going to benefit the most from it are the business owners and the upper wealthy class, which isn't all whites, but it is a large percentage of wealthy people are white. Not a large percent of white people are wealthy. Believe me, the vast majority of us are struggling. Okay, it's a day-to-day, paycheck-to-paycheck thing for the vast majority of whites. But all right, let's finish this video here, and then we'll close out.
Rely on DEI to get access to benefits, employment, education, and every one of their expenditures is subsidized. Either they're not working or they're not making enough money, and all of their housing, healthcare, food, education, their TVs, it's all subsidized. And it's subsidized by who? It's subsidized by an ever-shrinking workforce, which is made up of native white people that simply do not live like this. White people that actually are going to have a job and pay their taxes, that would never consider going on welfare, that don't want to use the emergency room as health care. White people that don't want to live in the slums and the ghettos with these ethnic enclaves. And so they need to price themselves out of that with private schooling and gated communities and high property taxes and zoning and code, which prevents different populations from coming in. This is a form of race communism. And by the way, these socialists, that is exactly their vision of the future. Understand that these socialists, they hate America.
They do. I did speed this up to 1.25 just because I want to get through these last couple minutes quicker. But he's right. A lot of these, and this is they hate America because of the subversion, because of the lies that they've been told about how white people hate them and are suppressing them. Believe me, as someone who had spent a lot of time in the lower socioeconomic realm, white people are suppressing other white people as much as anybody else, because right now it's difficult for anybody to get a job. You have to put yourself in the top, 10-15% of all income earners, maybe even 20%, maybe, to live like your average boomer in the 1990s. All right, to have anything, you have to be in the top 10-15% to have a high quality life. Most of us are going to suffer with this mass immigration. Let's continue.
They're not they may be anti-Israel. It doesn't make them pro-America. They're anti-Israel. Why? It's the same reason they say that Netanyahu is not a real Jew. They say Netanyahu is Polish. He's from Europe. The Ashkenazim are a European nationality. Why do they say this? Because they believe Israel is a European settler colonialist state. They hate Israel because they believe Israel is European, capitalist, colonial, and they're oppressing these indigenous people of the Middle East. And that's why they don't like Netanyahu. That's why they don't like this form of Zionism in Israel.
Yeah, Israel, you'll hear people talk about Israel being like a capitalist, like a Western, the only Western country in the Middle East. They're very much a militaristic state, okay? Everybody serves in the IDF, or everyone serves somehow in the army. They force you to get all the vaccines. It's a lot more socialist than you would think. It's not as capitalistic as you would think. But that's what that's what the left and the extreme right are saying. It's like, they're using Islam. They're using Israel as an excuse for everything. Let's continue.
And by the way, that's why they also hate America. They see America as a European settler colonialist state, capitalist, that's going to get its comeuppance. And this is why they're in favor of liberation of every stripe. They want open borders because they see the non-white people as the poor people of Earth. And so they want the benefits of America to be provided to all the people of the world. Borders are open. No borders, no nations. No deportations. Bring all the poor, oppressed people of the world into America to enjoy the spoils of America. We're not just going to redistribute the wealth from rich Americans to poor Americans. We're going to redistribute the wealth from heritage Native Americans to foreign nationals. Borders are open. Come on in. The wealth is for everybody. No deportations, no borders, no nations, no boundaries. All the poor people from those poor, oppressed former colonies of Haiti and Dominican Republic and Panama and Guatemala and the rest of Colombia and Africa and then Indonesia. All these people can come into America and they can all get their gibs. They can all get their free healthcare, free housing, free cars, free food, and they're going to get into the best schools with DEI and get the best jobs at the biggest companies with DEI. And this is punitive. It is meant to punish what they perceive as the richest group on earth, which is white Americans. Straight, white, conservative Americans. These are the people that have been too rich and had it too good for too long, and they need to be outnumbered, overpowered, fucking punished, and have all their stuff reappropriated, have all their stuff repoed, and given to the workers of the world. That's the DSA vision. That's why Abolish ICE is in all their platforms. That's why it's some frizzy-haired African getting a PhD. A PhD in what?
All right, we'll leave it right there. I do have to say there are a lot of very intelligent non-white people in the universities that are teachers. But I do get what he's saying. I personally experienced them, really intelligent. But I know I sound like I'm coping here, and believe me, any right wing person or Groyper that hears me say that, it's only because I've been there. I've been to college. I've been to grad school. I've engaged in debate. I've engaged in intellectual conversations. There are plenty of blacks and Latinos that are super smart. Trust me. Why do you think that they're so effective at what they're doing, and why we're absolutely getting destroyed? So anyway, the Groyper. The Republicans have a problem with these Groypers because, like we were talking about, they have a problem right now with them because they don't like their messaging. This anti-Israel. They don't like the messaging of the white race is dying. They don't like the message of we want to bring back ancient Christianity, and Christian Zionism have been a farce, and the mainline Protestant churches have been a farce. They don't want to talk about in these conservative Groyper and Red Pill and Orthos guys. The other thing they've noticed is about feminism, right? Or the gynocentric social order and the behavior of females now, if you would. They're noticing that that's the other issue they're talking about, is they're understanding what feminism's goal was and how it achieved that, and now they're pushing back, which sounds like hate speech. Sounds like hate talk to your average liberal, right? Who tends to be an average woman, or especially a large group is white women. They find that sort of talk is absolute hate talk. So a lot of the politicians will protect the women over the Groyper right wing men, because they're a throwback. They want to bring back ancient traditions. They want to be able to speak freely. They don't want to be able to be silenced. Right now, this whole movement, the 50,000 to 100,000 that Nick talks about, these are young men in their 20s, maybe early 30s, that have to do the work to get themselves in positions of power. He's been calling for that, right? He's been absolutely calling for that. And that takes a long time. It's a grand strategy. It's going to take a long time for this sort of thing to happen. And, really, it's something that society hates, which are the young, white males who are on the right, the Groypers. I'll even throw the Red Pillars in there. I'll throw the Ortho Bros in there. These are guys who have a problem with Protestantism. They want to reclaim like Orthodoxy or even Catholicism, some of them. They have a problem with feminism. They see the hatred that women, they've seen the gender wars, if you would, and they don't like it. They want to end it. They want to reclaim masculinity. They don't want to be seen as toxic, right? They want those things. They also want to talk about how being white is difficult and it feels oppressive. And if for a white person to do well, you have to be exceptional, and no other white person is going to help you. Believe me. This is what most people don't understand. Why do you think all these guys who get in the stock market, earn all this money, lose it, and then they throw themselves off a bridge? They literally self-delete. Okay, they delete themselves. They unalive themselves. I guess I have to be careful with the wording I say. Because they know that them living in the nice neighborhoods requires them being competent. You can't slip up. Nobody's got your back, dude. As truly as a young white man, and as young Latino man and young black man too, I would imagine very few people actually care about you. You as a man, you're expendable. And that's what men across all ethnicities have to understand here in the United States. We are expendable as men, and we have to understand the dynamics between men and women, and we have to understand, the direction of which our society is going in. We have to understand how to how to put ourselves in the top 10, 15% of income earners, no matter what realm of the world you're in. You have to do these things. You have to, because we know that at the end of the day, nobody's coming to save you. So that's all the time I got for tonight. I appreciate you guys. We're about 35 minutes in. Do check out, like I said, it'll be airing at 10 o'clock, either live show at 10 o'clock at night or pre-filmed one or whatever, a premiere, sorry, like this one's going to be. This is a premiere. I filmed this on Sunday, but it's about last Thursday's show on Nick. So you'll be probably most likely see a lot of premieres, but I'll be in the comments section listening and typing with anyone who wants to respond. Do like the video, hit subscribe. I can really use your help. I'm looking forward to growing this channel, and that's about all I got for you guys. All right, I'll see you on the next episode.